It's the final month of Year of the Mecha. We're in the home stretch. Everyone's coming back for one last round, starting with, by popular demand, aka me, Coolguy.
What's up, everybody?
It's been quite a while, not since the end of Last Raven that we got to be on like this.
Yeah, dude, freaking, like shortly after Last Raven, my life just got incredibly goddamn busy, and fortunately, it all cleared up for this month and this week.
Yep, definitely, yeah, because it's with only 5 games left. I wanted to make sure that we could at least get like a nice send off for every one of my co-commentators here who's been here at all the different steps of this journey. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you for having me on, buddy.
Yep. So let's get on with December's first game. Our final PS3 game on the list. Mobile Suit Gundam Side Stories.
I can't remember if it was like which exactly what exactly side stories thing that I did, but at one point Pop Tarts Ninja invited me and Robokai on for something like this, and I ended up laughing my butt off because neither one of them clocked that Steve Bloom was doing a voice in the game under his like non-union stuff, and I heard his voice like within 20 seconds.
Yep, that game was side story 0079, Rise from the Ashes.
Okay, and
this is
basically
on this series.
Yeah. This is shortly after that one. All right.
Yeah, the side stories line of games is like an important one for the Gundam series. Like I've covered as much even all the way back to the first game that used the side story subtitle, which was a 3-part Saturn game called The Blue Destiny. It is I'd say like a very important game for the Gundam series, as far as being the first one that you could consider to be a great game. Because it was all about the realization that there's no value in making a Gundam game that is just doing a retelling explicitly of of any one of the anime, original or the sequels or anything like that. You're better off just exploring another area of that universe. You don't need to be Amuro, you don't need to be a new type. You can just go through the grinder in just your regular ass low level mobile suit and work your way up to the more advanced units as you proceed towards the end of the 1 Year War, which is also what the side story games are primarily focused around. It's all about the 1 Year War, that pivotal moment in UC history.
It's the
and there have been, more games past Blue Destiny that followed in that same footstep. Obviously, Rise from the Ashes, which you were on an NLP for that one with Robokai Pop-Tarts Ninja. After that, there was Zeonic Front, which was a game all about playing on the side of Zeon and took the tactical elements that Rise from the Ashes started with and just amped them up to the 10th degree. A friend I know jokingly refers to it as Rogue Spear 0079 because it might as well be the Gundam equivalent of a Rainbow Six game. And then
That sounds awesome, though.
Yeah, it's real fucking hard, though. Even though it's in real time, which would fit with a lot of the games I put on this series, the fact that you have to do so much planning before going into a mission to figure out your routes and, when to switch over to different squads to perform different tasks is not streamer friendly, as you can imagine.
Yeah, no joke. Yeah, no, that's very much how the first couple of Rainbow Six games were. You would spend 45 minutes in the planning room, and then have all of it go wrong in 20 seconds.
Yeah, and then you had Lost War Chronicles, which was a Japan only game, Encounters in Space, which was all about space combat, and and at least when you get to that point, they stopped using the side stories subtitle, but you could tell that they were part of the same sort of style because they were all worked on by the same developer, known as Beck back in the day, before they merged with Banpresto, the creators of Super Robot Wars, to become BB Studio. Each of the B stands for those two original studios in their previous form.
Got it.
So for the 35th anniversary of the Gundam series, because this came out in 2014, they decided, let us make a side story game that creates a new storyline while also honoring the past legacy of these side story games that we have made up to this point. So
yeah, the side story premise as a whole is one that I always like. It feels like I should get a lot more into the game because the series rather because of new types ended up kind of filling a role in the Gundam series that Jedi filled in the Star Wars series. By which I mean, after a new type shows up, everybody else, no matter how cool or lame they are, just immediately stops mattering.
Yeah,
so
which is real frustrating because of going through the original anime and then even playing through another Gundam game, a full playthrough on stream months ago, just kind of realizing how, the original way that new type should have been portrayed, at least, the way I say it jokingly, is that people mistook, a branch of human evolution, or no, it's they mistook neurodivergency for, a evolutionary path.
Yeah, and there has been a lot. There have been a lot of Mecha series that explore that sort of concept. I know, I forget the name of it, but there was one particular series where the main character literally just he flew a training mech. And the reason why he did that in real combat with no armor or anything like that. He was just like, look, I can just look at something and I can see exactly where your gun is pointing, exactly where everything is at, and I need as much mobility as possible. And the way he acted was just super neurodivergent.
Yeah,
and the way he always acted was just incredibly neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm. So everything about this game, with basically like a compilation, essentially, of remakes slash truncated versions of older side stories campaign with an all-new original story, sounds like a recipe for a great, like, content-rich Gundam game experience. You could probably tell based on how I was describing that, it was anything but.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like I'm waiting for the other boot to drop over here.
Yeah, it's more complicated because, like, the thing that kind of holds this game together for me and why I ended up playing through everything this game had is because I genuinely really enjoy what the gameplay of this title has to offer, how it feels to control a mobile suit, and just the pace that combat moves at, the everything with the weight and heaviness of it all. The problem is that with all of like this material that is trying to cover from like the history of side story games is that it is a game with too much damn content, that it strains the level of production that it could get into. Because a game that was played on this stream beforehand last month, another PS3 game called Gundam Battlefield Record UC0081, also by these same developers, unique in the sense that it was a Gundam game that was not set during the 1 Year War or really during any of the other major anime like Zeta or Char's Counterattack or the like. It was just a random different year that held that they created like an important context for, and that one had, I would say, fantastic production values. Like, that is probably like the most impressive blend of 2D animated characters with 3D backgrounds and models that I have seen. Like, it does not come off as jarring as you would expect that kind of mashing together of completely different disciplines to be. This lacks any of that, because it's trying to fill in for like so many different storylines with so many different missions, along with VR missions as a side mode on top of that, which are just extra basic scenarios. The way I describe how this game feels is that it feels like it is a PSP Gundam game that got like that got mixed up in the shuffle and accidentally put on a PS3. Missions you'll find are very bite-sized.
Right. Yeah, I was good. Like it kind of sounds like precisely because they had so many stories and so many things to do. But like they almost had to violate the core of like their core game loop proposal simply to make the game function for the publisher in the first place.
Yeah.
Which that is absolutely a kiss of death. Like that. That's beyond gaming. That's just like basic, basic for frickin' technical project planning. You do one thing, you do it well, and that's what you focus on. Because trying to divide your attention, I'm reminded of the old Leonard Nimoy quote from Civ 4: "If you chase two rabbits, you will lose them both."
Yeah, and it's like the very concept of this. I say it feels like a PSP game. If it was on that platform, I think it would absolutely have made more sense, because they would have made sure that the budget production was pared down appropriately, and it would at least have like another model to follow, because there were Gundam games for the PSP by ArtDink that were very much in the format of covering a wide range of like series from the Universal Century timeline. You could play missions from 1 Year War, Zeta, Char's Counterattack, Double Zeta, all this stuff, and all kinds of different units that covered it. So like a version of those games where instead of the main series, you have the side story units that nobody knows about. Like, that's cool. But but then you have to have these very basic, like in-engine cutscenes right here. Very little to do with like fancy like animations or even like cutting in like animated portraits of your pilots. Yeah, it's a thing.
And here we go.
Getting into gameplay proper very soon.
The delay
Yeah,
struck me as way funnier than it should have.
It's like Like these are PS3 like style cutscenes. These are PS1 cutscenes. Like this is, we do not have specific cutscene animation tools, and we are just reusing what we have already made for gameplay purposes.
Yeah, there's not really anything inherently wrong with in-engine cutscenes, but that doesn't absolve you from not being able to direct it. Like, serious. The entire reload before going into battle thing is not exactly a new concept.
Yeah. So here is how it goes in action. Like, one of the things that really highlights like why I like this game is just like, even when you do so much as like just a forward boost, like the amount of time spent on like when you kind of like land from that forward boost, you're kind of skidding on the ground. It feels good. It doesn't last too long and feels sluggish, but it still has the kind of weight that you want out of it.
Yeah,
it is a lock-on based game.
Get that boy moving.
Yeah, it's a lock-on based game, like most mecha games, obviously, which means that's not inherently a bad thing, because all these projectiles are, you know, they have proper ballistics. They appear in the game environment. They have their own firing speeds. So it's all about, you know, matching boost trajectories so you can land your shots even on a moving target. You know, stuff that has been standard ever since Virtual On established it in 1995.
Yep.
Yes, and that means like all your face buttons are just for swapping between your different attacks. Triangle is pretty much always your melee attacks. Square and circle are for your various ranged options, machine guns, bazookas. Obviously, other units will have things like cannons or beam rifles, standard stuff. If you hold L1, you can guard, which your shield does have its own durability, but like that's not something that you want to like rely on too much. Dodging is more effective. Why you hold L1 is because it changes your attack options. You can see the glowing SP. Those are your special moves that you can do with them. So here's a special melee.
Game over, son.
Yeah, and that third meter that's like that currently has like a red section, like and it's divided into thirds. Basically, that fills up as you deal damage, and it fills up a lot when you take damage from enemies. Every special attack uses 1/3 of that. Yeah, that's basically kind of like the core of it. Obviously, you have like a pretty solid boost system that follows the same core rules as other Gundam games, where where like it's not as like smooth or versatile as something as you would get from like a classic Armored Core, even though it's a very similar one boost method. But it's sort of where like it's you know like if you're already holding in a direction and you press it, you're going to use your verniers to boost forward. If you're holding neutral or you press the separate button for jumping, like you'll do a vertical boost. It is very simple to come to grips with. I best describe this game, how it feels and works mechanically, as being a more weighted version of Art Dink's Gundam games for the PSP, which operated like on a lot of very similar rule sets. So as a result, this is not a game where it's going to focus on a lot of the more heavy, realistic, or sim elements that are possible with a Mobile Suit Gundam game.
Right. They tried. Honestly, every time they've tried to do something like that, it's been very hit or miss, mostly miss. Like it's just it's really difficult to get the sim portions of a machine like the like a Mobile Suit sorted out, simply because like frankly there are so many basic physical problems with the concept of a Mobile Suit, just why you're almost certainly never going to see something like that in real life. Like just even with a pilot, just trying to keep the damn thing balanced is a massive task.
Yeah, like I feel like the best modern example you could get out there is oh hey, General Revel. At least I think that's him from the Federation. Yeah, but like I feel like the best modern example of like pulling off that more realistic Mobile Suit combat concept well is the Battle Operation games, and even then, a lot of those those games explicitly hinge on the fact that they are multiplayer games first. So like so their systems are also having to be designed the way that they are, so that it creates like a fair playing ground for for people to fight against other people and not AI.
Yeah, the most I'm forgetting its name already because quite frankly it's a really bad game. But the most recent Gundam like 5v5 Gundam game that came out. That,
Evolution. Yeah,
oh,
it was the
was that
Overwatch
it?
clone. Yeah,
Yeah.
Gundam
Okay.
Evolution.
Yeah. Like that one had very similar precepts in that yeah, there's a lot of highly pre-programmed things which one of the distinctions that has come up in a couple of Gundam series is that the difference between a standard soldier and someone like a new type like Amuro, like Char, is that the new types think fast enough and can work fast enough they can really use the machine to its fullest effect, and everybody else is mostly using pre-programmed motions that the test pilots and the actual new types eventually are like ultimately put down for them in the first place.
Yeah.
So it does a good job of highlighting that divide. Of course, what actually happens is that normal humans come to realize what those animations are, and that like there will be weaknesses in them, and they're going to exploit the crap out of them. And
Yeah.
unlike every military iteration loop ever, there is not going to be like a competitive feedback loop to eliminate the weaknesses in those motions and movements.
Yeah. The side story games do at least kind of like deal with like that inherent problem of the fact that like new types do just have like a better grasp on how to like fully utilize the mobile suit's capabilities and motions, mainly in how it all comes back to the Blue Destiny. But I guess before getting into that, now that we got like the core gameplay explanation out of the way, I guess the story explanation is in order, and to why like
Yeah, go ahead.
this main plot line as it is called the missing link, or I guess to say what the lingering question of why is it even called the missing link. But the idea with this main story is that like you have two campaigns for it, one on the Federation side and one for Xeon. Part of two, so following the tale of like two different task forces. On the Federation side, there is the slave wraiths, and on the side of Xeon, there is the Marchosius. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's like a weird fancy
Close
name.
enough, if not.
And the idea is that they are essentially the units on both sides that are not favored or want to be acknowledged by even their own side, basically. Like Slave Wraith and Marchosius. Well, Slave Wraith more explicitly is made up of like the war criminals officially. Whether or not they were arrested because they did like actual war crimes is like I think explicitly made to be like
the
that's
18.
not the case. Yeah,
Basically the 18.
yeah. I mean, like to kind of explain like the kind of reasonings for why the Federation would have like branded these people as criminals to begin with is because one of the members of Slave Wraith, he has a wife who was unfortunately from one of the colonies, and when the war broke out, basically kind of wartime like restrictions on communication were put into place, and he was bypassing them just to check and see if his wife was okay. Unfortunately, that got intercepted, and they assumed he was a spy.
Right.
And it even had a knock-on effect on the Xeon side, where where people over there were like, hold on, maybe the wife is a spy too. Let's arrest her. And it also reflected badly on their son, who's in the Marchosius unit.
Got it.
Yeah. So the Marchosius unit is like that is less about like not everyone there is explicitly on there because they had like an imperfect criminal record or anything like that. It's more like they could have been something like sustaining like a serious injury in a battle that like might have like made them unfit for like a particular set of responsibilities in battle. But like most things on the side of Xeon, like these kind of fancy special units were obviously made under the supervision of Cassilia Zabi, because that's like a common occurring thing. Zeonic
Right.
Front was the same thing, where you're part of the Midnight Fenrir Corps, which was just a whole group of elite Zeon soldiers that were participating in a lot of important battles, both in and around the main Gundam UC-79 story. So you have you basically have like two groups that are fighting, and that aren't really favored by the people that they are fighting for. There's the Marchosis unit coming in as well. This is basically like the first proper introduction where where Slate Wraith and Marchosis are duking it out.
Oh man, I'm sorry. It was the spikes on the shoulders that got me.
Yeah.
That's so willfully edgy. It's just the
Oh
over the
man.
top bull crap I love.
Oh man. Even when you get to stuff like the Ifrits that are just equipped, there's like an Ifrit Kai that is just equipped with with giant ass kunai knives that are attached to everything.
Oh, I'm gonna be back in just 2 seconds.
Okay. There we go. Beam rifle shot. Oh yeah, and I guess an element of the gameplay systems I did not completely explain, because the first mission for it went by so quickly, is that you can switch between your different units on the fly. You don't have
that's
squad
interesting.
Yeah, you don't have squad commands like you would in other Gundam games that would try to do the whole having
Whole
two
unit
wingmen.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing where that mechanic is I could see the resemblance that could be made to Zeonic Front, because as tactical of a game as that is, a major part of that game is that you are also having to swap between your different units, your three squads in the unit on the fly, like Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's simplified in this case, where you can just swap between your up to 3 units on the fly, and they're treated in this context like extra lives, basically. One of my units, they're currently out of battle. You can see with the icon damage control and the timer counting down. If you get into a situation where all units in your squad are down, that is game over. But as long as one is alive, and you can keep one of them alive until your remaining ones come back from death, then you can keep the fight going. But obviously, they'll only come back with partial HP.
Right.
It's an interesting system, and I do like that as an alternative to what normally is the standard, where they try to have some semblance of being able to do squad commands, but it's always so underwhelming, because a lot of your potency in game just comes from you doing shit yourself and not relying on teammates.
It's the constant problem anytime you try to do anything with squad commands and squad control.
Yeah.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. It's still a UC Gundam game by people that have made these for years, which means they do understand the concept of if you let enemies get the momentum on you, you'll die very quick, because mobile suits are fragile.
They most certainly are.
Yeah.
One of the because the issue that arises with with squad control stuff is that it's actually a doable process to make quote unquote good AI that responds to situations appropriately and so forth. The really difficult portion is anticipating what the player wants, and how the AI should allow itself to be interrupted and accomplish orders when it's given them, because if the AI could evaluate a situation and say, okay, there's absolutely no reason for me to go charging in here, even if I'm an assault style mech, because I might end up just taking a bunch of damage for no reason. And then the player ends up setting up for long range, because they've noticed exactly the same thing, and then says, okay, AI person, go in, and the AI is just completely out of position. It takes them a million years to get to where they need to be, and they don't use the cover properly because they thought, oh, okay, I need to be in there right now because I just got the order right now. There's 101 problems to solve with that, and none of them have easy or simple solutions.
Right. Yeah, it's a real tricky process. And I feel like sometimes, like, the instance where you do see it work well is that it comes as a result of making the options and, like, process of doing it extremely complicated and in depth.
Or
Yeah.
the alternative is that they make the battlefield and the context so incredibly small and constrained, and the tactical options so few that there's a much better chance that you're going to get it right by making some assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So
because even when it comes to ones where it takes the more complicated approach that works, obviously that includes stuff like Zeonic Front, which works because you're just piloting Zaku's for the entire thing, so you don't really have any of the fancy extra stuff that you would get if you were piloting, like a Goof or an Ifrit or any of the more advanced suits they would have had. But then even then, when we showed off Heavy Gear 2 months and months ago, that is a game with a goddamn tactical map that you can just pull up at any time and give, like, super, like, complex directions to, like, all of your 4 squad mates.
Oh goodness. I was under the impression that you were going to have a couple fewer veterans, and then you switched over and I saw an ace, and I was just like, oh, this is problematic.
Yeah, Marchoses is now showing up and becoming way more of a problem, more of a thorn in our side at this point. At least we got, like, a pretty reinforced gun cannon type unit to
actually do a little bit of damage to these dorks. Like that was the real issue, is that even with just a veteran, you're doing no damage to these jackasses.
Yeah. Also, I think part of this is, like, why it's also looking just a bit difficult is because I've been playing other games in the meanwhile, and I'm still kind of trying to shake off the reflexes I've been relying on from those other games. Because I was realizing, oh wait, melee is triangle in this, not circle. Duh.
Speaking of mall ninja effects, this dude with a cloak on him.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Meet the Pale Rider. White, Black, and Red Rider are not appearing in this because they are currently helping out, like, other areas on Earth as part of the war. In fact, for anyone at home that might have watched my playthrough of Gundam Battle Operation Code Fairy, you saw White and Black Rider in that very game as well. This is where, like, the missing link, like, concept of, like, just the title for, like, this story kind of comes into play, because what this mysterious mobile suit, the Pale Rider, has going for it is, like, it is based off of a concept that was, like, already explored all the way back in Blue Destiny. In Blue Destiny, there was, like, the titular mobile suit of that game had a special computer system in it called the exam system. The idea behind it was to get at the problem of, like, what people all the way back in the 1 Year War were fearing about new types in terms of their ability to, like, be really good at mobile suit combat. And that was to essentially create an auxiliary brain within the mobile suit that would, like, supplement the pilot's abilities of controlling the mobile suit, so that it would give it essentially, like, new type, like, movements without actually requiring the pilot to have any of the special abilities or reflexes, precognition, and whatnot that a new type actually has. Problem is, that auxiliary brain was the result of an accident that was basically patterning itself off of an actual new type brain. An accident occurred in which that new type went into a coma. Her brain / soul or whatever basically got stuck inside it. And every time the exam system activates, after a few minutes pass, Like, the waves being emitted from it were enough to cause the pilots to go insane.
I realize that there's a lot of really cool themes of individuality and 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 persistent humanity and so on and so forth going on with all of that.
Yeah.
But I can't help but laugh every time there's something like like secondary brains or something like that in any kind of media, especially Mecha, because it always reminds me of the old exhibit memes. Yo, dog, I heard you like brains, so I put a brain in your brain. Now you can brain while you brain. All right.
Also, Haseo has the right
exhibit.
idea as far as a safer version of that. Just stick a Haro in there.
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, the whole thing with that in the Blue Destiny was that like it was essentially like the soul of that new type. The ghost in the machine was just crying out for anyone to try and like kind of hear her plight, which drove them insane. You know, so and that's why the exam system basically had to have like a limiter placed on it, where it's like, dude, we can only run this for 5 minutes. It's always 5 minutes because that's the amount of time an AVA unit can activate be active without its cord. You know, it just works that way. It's convention.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, like 5 minutes is all you need. It's also how long it took for Namek to explode. Don't worry about it. It's a half
the time scale on Namek is completely different from how it is on Earth. If it was on Earth, like from how they would have seen it, it would have been actual 5 minutes. No, I'm kidding. I'm just bullshitting. Yeah, it was a dumb, silly
time
thing.
Dilation is a bitch in all anime.
Oh, it absolutely is. But that's the idea of the Blue Destiny, the exam system. Obviously, that kind of work on a on that kind of system to supplement a pilot's ability in controlling a mobile suit was something that the Federation didn't want to give up on. So, cut to a shadow organization within the Federation that is officially working under General Revel, but is basically allowed to do whatever the hell it wants, taking the core concepts of the exam system and going, hey, how about we just take the ideas of the system, but we don't, like, hook up a actual new type in order to get its brainwave patterns. We'll just make it so that, instead, the more unethical thing, or maybe about as unethical, I'm not sure, is to essentially have it give, like, signals directly to the pilot's brain to the point that the pilot's actual input on the machine no longer matters. In a way, you could say that the ironic part of the name of Pale Rider is that the Pale Rider mobile suit itself is riding the pilot. Because that's essentially what's happening. Instead of the exam system, it is using the new Hades system. Never mind the fact that it is conflating, you know, like, two completely different figures of mythology. You know,
I mean, you sign up for that.
Yeah.
Like I'm sorry. Like you're basically signed up for stuff like that when you start getting into Mecha as a whole. Like you're going to hear all of these mythological figures and concepts quoted, and their actual application is going to have absolutely nothing to do with it. It's just because their names sound cool.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Yeah, don't create the Torment Nexus, guys. Come on.
Yeah, don't create the Torment Nexus. Screams poor William Gibson.
Yeah. But that's the whole deal with like the Pale Rider, the Hades system. There are renamed versions of that system that are all also added into the other Horsemen of the Apocalypse themed mobile suits. And as you'd expect, all the systems are like named after different, you know, figures in Greek mythology. Like White Rider's system equivalent is called Zeus. Red Rider's is called Ares. I forget what Black Rider's system is called, which I would have thought would have been Hades, considering like Nyx, maybe. I think that would probably make sense, I guess. But regardless, that's the that is just one of the new experimental mobile suits that Grave has successfully created near the end of the 1-year war. Has deployed them to various fronts in order to help push back Xeon, and unfortunately that also means tying into their other agenda, which is Slave Wraith is no longer useful for them, so they're just trying to come up with an excuse to get them killed in battle.
Cutting them loose.
Yeah, and even leads to the plot that factors more into the Marchosis side of things, where the squad leader Doug Schneid ends up deliberately cooperating with the Slave Wraith themselves, because they realize that, you know, with their current situation, neither of their home factions favor them. So they kind of have more to gain in like trying to get to the bottom of what the fuck is up with like this new mobile suit. Why is it killing us all? We need to just at least try and get to the end at some point. And that's why, like, on some missions on the Slave Wraith route, you actually are in situations where, you know, piloting Federation mobile suits, you are fighting against other Federation mobile suits.
Right, because they're trying to erase you, Mission Impossible style. You've been disavowed, son.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing where, you know, we could always get into like the same old argument about how Gundam has a problem with its fans being media illiterate or deliberately making excuses to side with the space Nazis. But it's like, even with that, you know, like, it's not unrealistic to say that that the Federation has like clear corruption problems within its organization, but is still on the more proper side of history compared to the people that dropped the colony on Sydney, Australia.
I mean, yeah, the entire point behind the Federation versus Xeon struggle is that if the Federation had its shit together, it wouldn't have been an issue in the first place.
Yeah. And as a result, because they didn't have their shit together for so many years, just dumping all of their refuse in space, that's why half of the population of the human race is now dead.
Right, you know, like it, just because you absolutely have to acknowledge, and it is not optional, that Xeon are a pack of absolute dickheads and are actual space Nazis, and this is not a moral gray area. They are the bad guys. You also don't need to say, oh yeah, that makes the Federation good in all things. No, like, they fucked up a lot of ways too. Like,
Garen Zabi was an asshole who practically equated himself to Hitler. That is, you could not get any more explicit than that. Yeah, this mission, as you can see right here, is like kind of late in the Marchosis campaign. Kind of even have like Slave Wraith kind of like helping along the way as we're trying to cover for the Xeon forces that are escaping from California base, because this is that moment near the end of the war where Xeon is absolutely getting pushed back into space.
Right. Here you go.
Heat halberd. Love that thing.
Yeah, and it leaves a fucking mark. I'm gonna be honest. Like I was in the middle of queuing up a comment about how if that thing doesn't hit like a train the same way it hit you like a train, I'm gonna be real disappointed. And then you landed a good hit with it, and a veteran's entire health bar went away. I'm like, all right, cool. At least we're playing by similar rules here.
Yep. Yeah, pretty much same thing that like all these side story games will always abide by. When it comes to like the more advanced customized units, they will always have like better tools and performance than just the standard issue Zaku or Jim. That's just how it works, and it makes sense because it's a video game, and video games got to have like a semblance of rules and progression.
One of the things that makes them harder to reason about than reality. Reality doesn't give a crap about any of that.
Yeah.
You mind?
That's true.
Some dork shooting you in the back.
Yeah. That's like I think I was looking. I'm remembering now, like as far as like missions that are left to cover with like this demonstration. Obviously, after showing off this episode of the Marchosis route, I'm gonna switch over to Blue Destiny because it gets into kind of like the lingering thing that I don't know if this is a case where the story is actually like this, or I just cannot find enough translated material to confirm it, but despite being called the missing link, the implication of that, like whenever anything uses that, the idea is that missing link implies that this is the lost piece of information that gives much needed context to everything that had been established up to that point.
Sure.
Like, the idea is that this missing link campaign would have been the thing that filled in any lingering questions that probably were not being asked to begin with about why things happened the way they did in stuff like, you know, be it the original anime or even other side stories like The Blue Destiny, Rise from the Ashes, Encounters in Space, etc. But I feel like from everything I've been able to find and translate on my own is that the only thing that this could potentially have, like, where the missing link moniker makes most sense is how it connects to the Blue Destiny, because of what I had just described earlier when talking about the exam system.
Right. So, but basically, it's a missing link that they themselves created, which makes it substantially less impressive.
Yeah, it's like saying, oh, Resident Evil 0 is the missing link to, like, the entire Spencer Estate Raccoon City incident, even though it's like everyone with a brain realizes everyone just assumed and logically believed that some dipshit scientist in the mansion dropped a test tube and that's how the T-virus broke out.
Yeah,
like,
we really
you didn't need to have like some revenge plot in which like an old man turns himself into a young a young man in like Wilma Flintstone's gown, singing opera and commanding of a whole army of leeches.
Also, we didn't need whatever the hell Billy was supposed to be.
No, Billy fucking Cohen's great. Shut up, he deserves more. You ever played Umbrella Chronicles? He has a melee move where he fucking drop kicks an enemy. You could drop kick an eliminator.
Okay, no, that actually redeems a lot, because
yeah.
I was about to say I'm still confused as to why they included him, and then you said you could drop kick an eliminator, and I'm like, that is a good reason to include him.
Yeah, it's like, what more do you need?
Simple man.
I mean, the RE0 events still suck, but whatever. That character, I mean that character to me is at least up there with the likes of, say, Shiva from RE5, who deserves to be in more than one game and deserves better.
Shiva was great. Like, Shiva absolutely needed so much more.
Josh Stone as well.
Josh also requires more.
100%.
Josh's own DLC where he goes through every wrestling move, and his taunt is to just bellow out, "I am a legend." I was just like, all right,
yes.
He's got it. Like, the man, you can't mess with the man.
Yeah, if Arian coming in late mid-conversation, if I didn't know what exactly he was talking about with RE0, I would have thought, what does this have to do with Gundam, as I started up the stream.
Yeah, well,
how you doing, dude?
We were talking about missing links.
Yeah.
RE0 came up.
Yeah, because that's like prime example of missing link where such a thing didn't need to really be answered or pose the question. This is a similar situation where it's like, at best you could say that the missing link is how something like the exam system led into the Federation continuing to develop more and more this concept of like auxiliary brain computer systems for mobile suits that can supplement the pilot's ability to perform well in battle. But there we go, the Xeon units and the remnants of the Marchosis unit, save for Doug Schneid, who stays behind on Earth to cover their escape. You know, they're all now returning to space to participate in the final battles, all of which will not go well. Gieren's gonna get a bullet in the head.
They're all dead anyway. Everybody's cheering, you're all dead anyway.
Yeah. Alright. Yeah, that's enough terrestrial battles. We'll switch over to the one of the Blue Destiny campaigns and show off like a little fight in space. Because this is one of those things that I think is actually kind of neat what this game does as far as including other side story campaigns in this. In the original Blue Destiny, you only had just the core campaign where you were playing as Yu Kajima, the protagonist that starts out in an experimental squad that's, just piloting a regular GM to start, but later moves up to piloting the titular Blue Destiny Unit 1, gets into a fight where the BD-1 is destroyed, and they upgrade him then, because of that, to the BD Unit 3, not the 2, because the 2 gets stolen, and it ends with a battle between Units 2 and 3 in space. However, for the Side Stories game, they made a bonus campaign where you play as the ace pilot on the Xeon side who ultimately ends up with the Blue Destiny Unit 2. Nimbus Stern. Yeah. Like in the main campaign, like kind of like starting out, like his main unit is that he pilots a custom, like a blue-colored custom Ifrit Kai that has red shoulders on top of that. It's a pretty striking design. When he gets the Blue Destiny Unit 2 for himself, it's still all completely blue, so it works with this color scheme, but the shoulders aren't red, so in the time in between, he actually paints them red. Just so everyone knows that, yo, I stole this mobile suit. This shit is mine now.
It's so that's so incredibly self-absorbed. I love it.
Yeah, like Nimbus has like a very like full of himself attitude, which kind of extends to like being kind of like a. I forget if it's him that has it or like another character, but I feel like I want to say that he has like a pretty stern like hatred of new types, because he himself, like you, is not a new type, despite being a Xeonist in space, which is like where the whole idea is that's where new types were essentially born because of the change of living environments being in space.
Mm-hmm.
But no, like the whole but I think like the reason for like he kind of has a hate for. No, I think I remember. It's not new type specifically. It's specifically a hate towards the scientists that developed the exam system because of the dude's experiments that resulted in the new type Marion Welch having her soul, like, essentially, like, trapped inside the exam system. And to the scientist's credit, like, he did feel like some immense guilt from that, which unfortunately got him more flack from Xeon because he decided to defect to the Federation. And is the entire reason why the Federation was able to develop the Blue Destiny series in the first place. So this is Nimbus essentially, like, again, with that sort of, like, self-righteous attitude of his, he's basically taking back what he feels rightfully belongs to Xeon, because they just took, like, technology and shit that was being developed by Xeon, and the scientists decided to have a change of heart. The traitor.
Sure. Whatever gets you to sleep at night there, man.
Yeah. So in space combat, as you'll see, it's not too different from how it is already on the ground. The difference is that you end up making use of the L2 and R2 buttons a lot more, because L2 is your button for, like, normally it's for, like, jump jets if you just want to go straight up. And R2 is for a quick descent, which you can do on the ground, but I generally don't find as much value in doing that compared to just chaining air dashes to get around and such. But here, it's way more practical because you are in a full zero-G environment. Gravity is not a thing. In fact, it's not a thing to the point where even if you stop moving for a while, your mobile suit will actually still subtly drift in that direction. It's a little touch that I like that shows how, despite like the kind of the arcadey, fast-paced influences this has, there's just enough realism in place to kind of give it a different feel.
I appreciate that they went through the trouble of literally just naming it boss.
Yeah.
That's the skill level you're up against now. This is a boss. Don't worry about it.
Yep. And I'm still having to get used to the fact that, like, because these are the ascend and descend controls, and I've been playing so much Another Centuries episode, which have them mapped to, like, the right shoulder buttons, it's throwing me off. It's like, dude, I'm pressing R1. Why am I not going up? It's so weird. I should not have been playing those games again so much before starting this, but what can you do?
It's a constant problem.
Oh yeah. But yeah, and so like with this battle, this is essentially how the original Blue Destiny game would have ended, except you were obviously playing as Yu Kajima instead of Nimbus. So this is just the reverse side of that.
They did a really good job of setting up a proper fencing match here.
Yeah, and I think one thing that definitely is almost to like this mission's particular benefit is because this is an open environment, and like the skybox isn't taking up too much processing power. This is like one of the better running missions in terms of performance.
Yeah, that would be particularly important for setting up a good fencing match as well. Like if you're dropping frames and you're just like, oh, I totally should have dodged that. Like that will utterly ruin the entire moment for your player.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's just unfortunate that like when you see how well this mission runs, is that why couldn't the rest of the game have been like this? Thankfully, it never gets as bad as, you know, say Gundam Crossfire, which is like probably like one of the worst running Gundam games you can imagine because it's a launch PS3 game that often like runs into the low tens, if not single digits.
Oofta.
Yeah. And yeah, like this whole battle, like you and Nimbus are trying to like resolve their rivalry. They're both activating the XAM system, and just because of how much they want to kill each other, they're still being oblivious to the fact that Marion Wench's soul is just crying out for them.
Screaming in the background, yeah.
Yeah, just like understand her plight. Damn. Unfortunately, you cannot do the special like melee attacks on an enemy if they're in a recovery animation.
I love that because it looked like you were counting coup. Like I could have murdered you right there, but I didn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, full power of the XAM systems. I do like that they at least had the thought to spend as much money as possible to make this cutscene special compared to most others. There they go. They because usually like all like the computer sensors and whatnot are generally stored in the heads of the mobile suits.
Right.
That basically means that by the end of the Blue Destiny, there are no more functioning Blue Destiny units, and all of its combat data, traces of the XAM system are basically destroyed.
Nice and neat.
Yep. Yeah, there's a reason why why the Blue Destiny, that game is like I call it like one of the most important Gundam games, and that it also helps that like even for its time, you know, like a 1996 Sega Saturn game is that it's really good as it is. Like that is a triumph. It is such a shame that ultimately, because it's a Saturn game and it was before Gundam got any sort of like distribution in the West, that means it is forever lost to time to most people.
Yeah, nobody's ever gonna play it, unfortunately.
Yeah, more people will know about Rise from the Ashes because that was the first one to get localized. But Rise from the Ashes is like a fine game, but I would say that like its main flaw is that it feels like such a halfway step between what the Blue Destiny was in terms of just being, you know, fast-paced, to the point mobile suit action, and what Zeonic Front ultimately landed on, which was just mobile suit combat as a tactical affair. Because I don't know how much you remember from like what you saw of Rise from the Ashes, because there was a whole tactical map in that game as well.
There was.
Yeah, but interfacing with it involves breaking up the action so often because it only exists in the pause menu.
Yep, and like, for lack of a better term, the feeling of interacting with it is just so completely different. Because Rise from the Ashes, like everything moves relatively smoothly, and it all feels pretty reasonable. And then trying to interact with the tactical map is just 8 kinds of start and stop.
Yeah,
it's like trying to drive in a traffic jam. It feels terrible.
Yeah.
So like you don't want to interact with it on multiple levels.
Yeah, and at least to this game's credit, with the Rise from the Ashes campaign, since it's using all the same gameplay system, you don't have to worry about the clunkiness of the tactical map. But therein lies also the other problem: if someone were playing this game and they had also gone through Blue Destiny, Zeonic Front, Lost World Chronicles, etc., and found themselves wishing, man, why couldn't these extra campaigns have included some of the functionality that those original games had? Like both story and gameplay reasons, I'd say, are the main thing why this game would be immediately improved if you keep the Missing Link campaigns with their epilogue chapters, but the only extra campaign you bother to recreate is the Blue Destiny, and that's it. Because making Rise from the Ashes and Zeonic Fronts without like the tactical elements that kind of define those games is a little bit of what's the point?
Right.
And then there's like this one, Cross Dimension 0079, which wasn't even like a real time like 3D Mobile Suit Gundam game. It was actually a Super Famicom like a turn-based strategy game. Like it's a weird pull, but I guess part of the reason for why they did it is because that was where they introduced the Gundam Pixie, which is like a line of Gundam mobile suits that does show up, like a modified version of it does show up in the Missing Link. But I don't consider that nearly as important to justifying the Missing Link title the same way that it does for the Blue Destiny, where there is the clear lineage of going from the exam system to Hades, and like the mobile suits essentially going out of control when you are putting so much stock in a computer system that either drives the pilot insane or renders their input on its performance completely pointless.
Just yeah, like it's kind of a strange literary, what's the word I'm looking for, mechanism to use in that way.
Yeah.
Like on one hand, yeah, it's supposed to be this really cool really cool thing to expand on and play with and blah blah blah. But by the same token, it's just you've almost written yourself into a corner with its basic setup and theory.
Yeah. Nihilism and mechanism. Pretty much. Yeah. So I'm going to show, kind of to wrap this up, because obviously with this being a Japan-only game, like, I can't, give that much more detail about, like, what all is happening in the story and context of this game, only just for what I've, like, gone through as far as, like, the translated material that's out there. But I will show off, like, basically, like, the finales of, like, these epilogue chapters, where the thing that makes them stand out is that, unlike all the other campaigns, these are not set in the 1 Year War itself. Like, the idea is that when you start the game, you first have the Slave Wraith and Marchosa storylines to play through. And once you beat those, you start unlocking the other campaigns that are based on other side story games in the past. Blue Destiny, Zeonic Front, etc. And eventually you get to a point where you unlock the epilogue campaign for Slave Wraith. And once that's done, you then get the final epilogue chapter, which is... which I guess, like, basically meant is, like, the follow-up to Marchosa's, but I believe it has, like, another name that it goes by, which is known as Reaper. But the idea, like, as you can see, especially with the fact we got a Gyaradoga, is that we are already well, like, in the time period of, fucking, like, Char's counter-attack, or at least close to that. It's no longer the Principality of Zeon. We got Neo Zeon that are causing trouble. I love it, just like just subtle, like, moving forward and then, like, sudden stop animation on that third unit.
Yeah.
Just, like, again, getting back to these PS1 quality, like, techniques for cutscene animations.
Yeah, like I said, it doesn't remove your need to be a good director.
Yes.
Like, you've got to use what you have appropriately, and damn, son.
Yeah, I mean, you see that now, especially after we saw the ending cutscene of Nimbus's Blue Destiny campaign, and it is so night and day how, like, some of them, because some of those cutscenes really did just get preferential treatment over others.
It's pretty obvious, yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. Again, production was spread very thin because they wanted to do like way too much. It's the sort of thing where because I even mentioned offhand that like this was released for the 35th anniversary of the Gundam series. You would think with being an anniversary project that would immediately mean that it was like, because I would say that's typically for a lot of things, games especially, is that tends to be a red flag, because that means that they have like a deadline they need to meet, where more often than not they're probably rushed way more for time than if they were to just operate on a normal production schedule and simply release it when it is ready and gone through that cycle.
Right.
But I don't even think it was a matter of running out of time. Like, it really does feel like BB Studio just wanted to cover this amount of material, and when they realized that they had stretched themselves too thin, it was too late to course correct. Like, the fact that it even released in time for the year that would have been Gundam's 35th anniversary was just more of like a extra sting on the matter.
Right.
Because it would have been a great celebration if it actually managed to land its concept and come out in the time that it planned for.
Obviously, this isn't. This wasn't really a. Isn't really a thing for consoles even today, and was even less of a thing back then. But like a lot of the things you're talking about there are really to me talking about the need for extra guess and check.
Yes.
You know, like that is really one of the primary benefits of like the early access era that we're in right now is not necessarily making a jillion sales while you're in that time period, just getting people who are actually interested, actually committed, and actually devoted to making good changes to the game, so you can listen to them efficiently. And Larian recently did that outstandingly with Baldur's Gate 3, just because they were like they took them like 2 years, and they were just constantly listening and constantly making changes. And obviously there's a number of situations you can see right here. It's just, if they would have had actual information from the edge where people were truly paying attention, rather than simply mandates from the edge from some corporate board that was just like, well, we got to have X, Y, and Z, then like just the way the effort would have been applied is just completely different.
Yeah, definitely. Make a game for the 30th anniversary, release it for the 35th.
And it's not like it would have been impossible. It would have just been way more radical. And there isn't a large company born that likes radical.
Yeah, especially when this is like all for properties that are owned by Bandai.
Right, like Bandai was never going to embrace a radical listening procedure like that, and like they probably wouldn't even do that sort of thing today, and that's unfortunate, because at this point it's no longer radical. Like there's tons of evidence that this is absolutely vital to making really good and responsive games, and really good and responsive designs.
Definitely.
Good Lord. I will say, like the design, like we're talking about all of this, the design on the naval ships that you're fighting, I actually really appreciate, just because like you can see those massive fuck off cannons just rotating around you. That crap is intimidating. You don't want to take your eyes off of that. Because you know those boys.
Yeah.
Those boys hit you in the back.
Even the detail that like every armament on those warships you can also individually target and dismantle if you so choose. That's like a nice detail, even if not as necessary, because the more practical option is to just aim straight for the cockpit and like deal with avoiding its artillery fire.
I mean, yeah, either way you want to deal with it. Like, honestly, it was the fact that you could target them individually that was making them even more intimidating to me, because it was just like, those are gigantic, and there is something I can do about it. So I probably should, like, right now. Like, right now!
Yeah. And then we got, like, this fucking thing that's, like, even got, like, a anti-beam field, eye field, or whatever you want to call it, that's, like,
right,
fucking shrugged off like an entire, like, beam super weapon, so... Yeah, this is something where, you definitely find that, in the game's extra mode, called VR missions, you end up having to go, like, near the end of those 100 missions, because, again, this game had a problem of it wanted to create too much content that it couldn't provide. Is that you're kind of dealing with, like, these sort of Neo-Zeon units that, you know, they're much later and more advanced than units that were available in the 1 Year War. That means the concept of psycho frames, eye fields, and like more advanced defenses in general were possible. So it's a bit more of like of an ordeal just to take down this one mobile suit.
Yeah, like that boss isn't even paying attention to you. You're just completely laying into it from behind, and you're still basically doing nothing.
Yeah. In fact, I would not be surprised if maybe like wearing down like the other support units would help in this case.
If nothing else, it would let you focus a little bit better.
Yeah. And actually have some use for, like, my beam rifle, because it's not getting deflected.
Get back here, you get fucking boosting away.
Yeah. Right. Alright, time for the big fuck-off laser, and it's not even looking at...
Sure, why not?
Oh, I think it's because he actually broke lock-on the moment I was starting to fire it, and that's why he was just giving me that wide shot. Admittedly, it looked like it was a pretty good-looking shot, just holding like that beam rifle and just having a persistent hitbox.
Weird how much more effective you are when there isn't an impenetrable beam field in front of you, though.
Yeah, like it is unsurprising how, like, when you get to, oh yeah, that's why we needed to, like, do that, because that's the way to actually finish this mission, because it takes forever otherwise. Yeah, I don't know. Well, yeah, but let's get through that. Yeah, the VR missions are such, like, a weird thing too, because it's I will say, at least with those, like, I've been focusing on just like the actual campaign missions, because at least for a lot of them we could just we can have something that shows off like some cutscenes to break up the pacing. VR missions are really just pure gameplay, and they're very simple, to the point, like, objectives and whatnot. With some exceptions, some of them are actually kind of fucked up. Like, there's ones where you basically have to destroy key installation targets at a base without getting detected by patrolling mobile suits. And it sucks, because it's a stealth mission in a game where, like, it's not really giving you any
actually
reason.
Support stealth.
Yeah.
Well, like, the game doesn't support stealth. I was actually kind of curious what you meant by too much content there, because like it's been something I've noticed in games over the years, is that many of them, their primary problem is that they don't have enough content. They did not commit to their bit enough. Like they have an idea of what their core game loop is, but they didn't put in enough events. They didn't put in enough missions. They didn't put in enough situations to really make it feel like the bit was well used. And I was just like, really? So this one has exactly the opposite problem of too much content. And I was going to ask you about that, and you ended up kind of kind of anticipating the question right there insofar
Yeah.
as yeah, okay, it has a lot of these pure gameplay things. Okay, that's wonderful. And then the gameplay is not part of the core game loop, and it's not actually supported. It's like there it is,
Yeah,
exactly
the
the
times they
same.
try to use the gameplay in a different way, it goes terribly. So all it's really used to good effect on is just elimination missions, and that would feel like a doable thing for people to go through if there wasn't like an overwhelming amount of those missions that are just eliminate the enemy.
It's the same. It's the same reason why people hate escort missions. Escort missions
Yes.
are always the same sort of thing. You're expected to keep this jackass alive, and the core game loop has absolutely nothing to do with that. And it's not well supported,
Yeah.
and it's not well thought out, and the dude dies a lot. And it's just like,
Yeah. And then
okay,
you get the
well,
rare exceptions like Resident Evil 4 where Ashley actually sticks behind you and you can drop her in
she
a
was core game
dumpster.
loop.
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
like like they
Get
they act they actually incorporated her into the gameplay, and it was very important that you have a positive relationship with Ashley. For all of its faults, BioShock Infinite did something similar with Elizabeth. Elizabeth
Yeah.
was there. She always helped. Nobody ever targeted her, because that what like her getting shot was not really part of the core game loop. It was really important that you have a positive relationship with Elizabeth. And Ashley and Leon was exactly the same thing. Only in that case it was important for her to have some sort of hazard to her, because you were supposed to be protecting her in the first place.
Yeah. So here we are with the final mission we'll demonstrate Reaper the Reaper. Yeah, that's literally what the katakana says right there. The fact that like this,
Sure.
yeah, yeah, the piloting a custom Ifri Kai liver the Reaper. I'm pretty no, it's like no because I did look up like from like translate material like yeah, it's supposed to be Reaper, and like the main dude's like actual name is Rebar or Rebar, something like
Okay,
that.
cool.
So I think it's like the way that they phrase it with the katakana is supposed to like sound similar yet still
It's
be kind
supposed
of
to be.
different.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
supposed to be a pun. Like
Yeah.
the entire thing is wordplay, and it's exactly like me trying to make puns in Japanese. Half of them are gonna be incredibly fucking cringy because I don't use I might
Mhm.
speak Japanese to some extent, but I don't actually understand Japanese on that level.
Right. Yeah. None of us can ever understand Japanese well enough to make a joke that would fit in the Gambari Goemon game.
Right, like I'd have to actually just live in Japan for a couple of years and make a real point out of understanding how the language is used in an applied manner like that. It's a very high level of proficiency with the language. And like, as long as you understand that, you understand that what you're doing is going to be a little cringe. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, not everything needs to be masterworks, especially if the fact that it's a little cringe is the point. Like
Definitely.
if this Rebar the Ripper dude is just, he's a little bit of a tryhard, and he's a little bit cringe even in games. It's just like, great,
Yeah.
cool, wonderful.
I mean, look at all those kunai strapped to the fucking shoulder pauldrons.
Yeah, like if you're trying that hard, especially you can use those kunai. They're
Yeah.
called heat darts. Okay, I was
Yeah.
like, particularly if you can't actually use those. Like that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, try hard as it is, it's at least justified when it is so fun to play this, because look how fast I can boost.
Oh yeah, like basically boosting forever too.
Yeah, it's so good. Got a bazooka, shotgun as well. And then can't forget, like, what his special melee looks like. There's the shot.
There's the shot.
Yeah. Again, like, you could go the try hard route as long as you understand exactly what you're going for and have, like, the balls to back it up.
Just like commit to your bit and be honest about it.
Yeah.
Like that. That's honestly one of the primary reasons why things like this fail. It's just like they do a little nod to it and then they don't commit to it. You're not going to commit to it. Don't do it to begin with.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, this is like with this Ifrit unit on this visual, like this is like, to me, really like the best demonstration of this game's combat at its best. And
there's a lot of targets, yeah.
Yeah, and just if the game had pared down on the amount of missions and content it wanted to show, and built up much quicker to moments like this, game would have been like a much cleaner, concise product all around.
Right.
Yeah, and especially thinking, it's funny actually with like playing this now on stream. I realized, because obviously when it came to Year of the Mecha, I had basically figured out all of the games, save for the very last one, because I deliberately kept it a secret. Like before this year started, and over the course of this year, I ended up doing bonus Year of the Mecha streams because I had been playing other games that I didn't consider initially, only to realize, oh wait, these are actually great. And
totally on brand.
Yeah, and the reason I had ultimately included side stories, because of all the faults that it has that we have highlighted, between like the inconsistent production, performance, simplicity in some areas compared to like what other more in-depth Gundam experiences might have. I included it because it was essentially, at the time, what I thought was the last time this studio had ever made a single-player Gundam game, let alone a Gundam game that would have worked as a side story title.
Right.
But then earlier this year, I discovered that BB Studio had actually they had actually taken the gameplay system they made for Battle Operation 2 and built an entire single-player game around it called Code Fairy, and was actually very impressed by it, to the point where I made that an Omaki playthrough, because much like with Steambot Chronicles, those were games, if I had known what they actually entailed, I would have included them on the main list. And probably would have replaced this game, if we're being honest. Because, again, like, there was kind of like a feeling I had with this initially, where it was like, this is the last Gundam game of this type. Everything after this you could point to is basically in one of two directions, so representing two dichotomies of Gundam games out there. There's the super realistic, heavy, like, type of mobile suit combat experience that Battle Operation provides. In fact, Battle Operation 1 was technically out at this time. It was a free-to-play multiplayer game on PS3 when this was made. In fact, I think it uses a lot of the same code base, despite different game mechanics, which would probably explain, like, the kind of the weird problems with the game performance. But then on the opposite end, also around this time, you had Gundam Extreme Versus, which one of those titles is actually going to be covered next week, by the way. And that is, like the peak of arcade-style Gundam combat. It takes like the 2v2 concept that Virtual-On fucked up with Force and made it work, and Extreme Versus, like, because Gundam Versus already existed like before with several other games, but Extreme Versus pushed it like up to a new plateau in terms of speed and mechanical depth. So then you have this game that is stuck somewhere in the middle, and it's a middle ground where I actually don't mind where it is. I would actually have liked if we had gotten another game that carried on this same set of mechanics, like the fact that it's lock-on based, the fact that your squad mates are essentially extra lives that you can swap between. But having it in a game that had the production values to better match, like, the other things that I feel people genuinely would look for in a Gundam experience. Something that really shows off the characters and story, like the context, the gravitas of like the war and conflict that they're in, which is something that Battlefield Record UC 0081 did very well. And Code Fairy actually does a pretty reasonable job of, even if it's kind of goofy at the start because it's all about an all-female Xeon unit. And the way that it introduces itself, it comes off as being like, oh, this is so anime. But it highlights as it goes on, oh no, they understand. This is a story in the 1 Year War. These girls understand they're in a losing battle. They just have to survive, and it kind of works. So this game is just a weird in-between point that has like a really strong blueprint that deserves to be in something better. And again, if Code Fairy did not exist, I probably would have been like content to leave this as being kind of like one of the last Gundam games to feature on this channel. But now after playing through Code Fairy twice, this one feels extra weird. Still, point is, there needs to be more of this because as inconsistent as their output has been, like, in the history of doing these Gundam games, BB Studio has basically, I feel, been kind of the best ones to do it. At least the ones that understand best, like, what, like, the core concepts of Mobile Suit Combat in the Universal Century is supposed to be like. It'd be a whole other story if they were tasked with, adapting another alternate continuity or making an entirely game original continuity altogether. But I think they kind of understand at this point that like probably one of the better places for fans of Universal Century Gundam to go at this point is basically the games. Because the anime output from Bandai is always going to be so all over the place in terms of concepts that they want to go with. Like that's basically their ground to kind of experiment with different technologies and themes and entirely other settings that are otherwise incompatible with the time-old tradition of Federation versus Xeon.
Right.
But that's it. That is Mobile Suit Gundam Side Stories, a game that is trying to be way too many games at once, but at least it has a strong gameplay core to it. Otherwise, I would have dropped this thing hard like a rock if it didn't.
Right, like one of the larger points behind me making the Star Wars parallel earlier was basically to point out exactly how much the quote unquote normal members of Rogue Squadron were always celebrated. Wedge Antilles, Hobby Cleveland, Wes Jansen, they have just entire cult followings, and there was the entire outrage outrage. Honestly, I kind of felt like manufactured outrage when Wedge's actor decided not to come back for the Disney stuff because he had finally managed to get out from under the Star Wars shadow, and I was just like, oh, cool. So if this entire thing is about basically making some Wedge, Wes, and Hobby sort of characters, that's a really cool usage of not just the Gundam mythos, but the medium of video games which gives you more interaction with it. It's kind of sad that they didn't really commit to that bit.
Yeah,
because it kind of felt like that, like that's what they're trying to do, but they spread themselves too thin with too many short side stories.
Yeah, and a lot of those actual side story games that those campaigns are based on, a lot of them are like better spent by just playing them, Lost War Chronicles might be a bit difficult since it is Japan only, but a lot of the other ones, Zeonic Front and Encounters in Space did get English translations, like they did get localized on the PS2 back in the day. Rise from the Ashes we already made mention of. Blue Destiny is obviously just like the other outlier where it's it's not in English, but at least because of the notoriety that game has, is that you could search up Mobile Suit Gundam: The Blue Destiny, and you'll find the Gundam fan wiki page for it, and someone has just gone and done a full synopsis of the story on a per mission level. So at least if you want to be able to follow along and figure out, okay, what exactly were all the events that happened in the Blue Destiny, you can look it up right there, have it alongside playing the game itself, and be like, oh, I understand fully. I now got full context for, as I had referred to when I played it on stream, the Star Wars Dark Forces of Gundam games. because we all know about like what made Dark Forces special, that, you know, much like how you weren't a new type in the Blue Destiny and you were going up in terms of like power with like your mobile suits and like weapons and armaments, Dark Forces, Kyle Katarn, he was not a Jedi. At least not yet. He wasn't. But he was just
getting there, I guess. Eventually,
he was getting there. But at least even in the later games, it made sense where, you know, like Jedi Knight, Jedi Knight 2, you didn't start with the lightsaber right away. You at least had to go through the ringer of what it's like to be running around with a blaster, shooting stormtroopers and the like, before you finally got your lightsaber and were able to take your game up to the next level.
Kyle was always unique because
Yes.
it always felt like he sort of got backed into being a Jedi, whereas everybody else was chasing it.
Yeah, magnificent beard in that second game, though.
I mean, that was part of it. There's the Star Trek idea where the meme of growing the beard, because like in the first season, Next Generation was honestly kind of bad.
Yeah,
and then it
Riker
really started
was clean shaven and he looks so weird.
like it started to hit its writing groove in the second season, which is around the same time Riker grew the beard.
Definitely, yeah. Oh man.
And Kyle Katarn didn't really have a great presence in the first game. In the second game, he really started to come into his own, which is also when you really started to notice how amazing his facial hair was.
Yeah, that's true. And even in Dark Forces 1, there was that moment where you got to punch out a Kell Dragon with your bare hands.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good notch under Kyle's belt as far as him being one of like the best motherfucking characters in that extended canon.
Mm-hmm.
God, yeah. There's so much good stuff. But that's it for the for today's stream. As I mentioned several minutes before, the next week's Year of the Mecha game is Gundam Extreme Versus title, the final update of the original Extreme Versus, Maxi Boost On, which it's funny, even though like that game got a PS4 port in 2020, I still consider that a 2016 game, considering that's when like the final arcade revision was, and I feel that's more appropriate because that's where the game made its money anyway. But that'll be a fun one to see. Millennium Cyborg will be on for that one. Look forward to it. In the meantime, I got to get in as much practice as I can. Not to play online, but just to make sure that I don't, like, embarrass myself in front of the AI when I'm going through the arcade mode. Because it is still an arcade game through and through, and just one of the best feeling arcade mecha games you could hope for in the wake of Virtual On no longer being as good as it was with Oratorio Tangram.
All right. Well, thank you very much for having me on again, Duder. Really appreciate it.
And good luck to you getting Endless Dark to 1.0 release.
I'm super excited about it. Like if anybody watching hasn't seen it yet, like please check us out again on Steam. We just released our last major update before the finale. It was our biggest release since we hit early access. Like the game really feels a ton more complete now.
Yeah. There we go. Until then, you all have a good weekend. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Game over.